You have always known things you weren't supposed to know. You walk into a space and feel the history of what happened there before you arrived. You sit across from someone who is smiling and telling you everything is fine, and something in you knows with absolute certainty that everything is not fine. You pick up the phone to call someone right as they were about to call you. You dream things that later happen. You feel a shift in someone's energy days before they tell you something has changed. And for most of your life, you probably did one of two things with these experiences. You either tried to explain them away because the world around you had no framework for them, or you quietly carried them alone because every time you tried to share them, people looked at you like you were slightly unhinged. But what if these experiences were not strange? What if they were not accidents or coincidences or overactive imagination? What if they were abilities, real, legitimate, extraordinary abilities that you were born with and have never been properly taught how to use? That is exactly what this video is about. Here is what it actually feels like to carry abilities you were never taught to understand. It feels like being handed an incredibly powerful instrument with no instruction manual. You can hear sounds from it that nobody else can hear. You can feel vibrations through it that leave you breathless. But because nobody ever sat down with you and showed you what it was or how it worked, you have spent years either overusing it until you were completely depleted or trying to muffle it so the world would find you easier to be around. The overusing looks like absorbing everyone's emotions without any filter or boundary, taking on the grief of strangers, feeling the collective weight of a room full of people as if all of it belongs to you, and then going home so empty that you can barely function. The muffling looks like numbing out, disconnecting, convincing yourself you don't feel as much as you do, because feeling that much without understanding it is simply too much to sustain. And the cruelest part is that neither of those things is actually using the gift. Both of them are just different ways of being overwhelmed by it. Nobody told you that what you have requires practice, requires structure, requires intentional development the way any real skill does. Nobody told you that your sensitivity is not just emotional, it is spiritual, and that spiritual abilities, like any abilities, can be trained, directed, and used with precision rather than just endured. That changes today. Let's talk about what your abilities actually are, because naming them clearly is the first step to using them with intention rather than just surviving them. The first and most foundational ability you carry is what we can call emotional resonance, which is the capacity to feel the emotional state of another person as if it were your own. Not to imagine it, not to intellectually understand it, to actually feel it in your body, in your chest, in your nervous system. Most people experience empathy as a cognitive process. They hear that someone is grieving and they think, that must be hard. You experience it differently. You feel the grief. You feel the specific texture of it, whether it is sharp or hollow or heavy or resigned. You feel the difference between someone's anger and someone's fear, even when both look identical on the surface. This is not just emotional sensitivity. This is a form of direct knowing that bypasses language and logic entirely. And when it is used with intention rather than just experienced as an involuntary flood, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for genuine human connection, for healing work, for understanding what is actually true in a situation versus what is merely being performed. The way you begin using this ability correctly is by learning to distinguish between what is yours and what belongs to someone else. This sounds simple. It is one of the most profound practices you will ever develop. Before you walk into any space, any conversation, any relationship, take a moment to notice your own emotional baseline. How do you actually feel right now in your body in this moment before you absorb anything from anyone? That baseline is your anchor. Anything that arrives after you enter the room that wasn't there before is information about the room, not information about you. The second ability is intuitive reading, which is the capacity to sense truth beneath performance. You have always been able to feel when someone is lying, not just about facts, but about themselves. When someone is presenting a version of themselves that doesn't match who they actually are underneath. When a situation carries a different meaning than the one being offered. You may have spent years dismissing this ability because it made you feel paranoid or presumptuous. Who are you to think you know more than what someone is telling you? But the experiences kept proving you right, didn't they? The friend you felt uneasy about who eventually showed you exactly what you had sensed. The opportunity that looked perfect on the surface but felt wrong in a way you couldn't articulate and turned out to be exactly that. The times you walked away from something everyone else said was fine and were later grateful you listened to yourself. This ability is not paranoia. It is perception operating at a frequency most people don't have access to. And the way to use it correctly is to start treating it as a first draft of information rather than a final verdict. You don't have to act on every intuitive read immediately, but you do need to stop discarding them before they've even been considered. Write them down, track them over time. You will start to see a pattern of accuracy that will make it very difficult to keep calling it coincidence. The third ability is energetic sensitivity, which means you literally feel the energy of spaces, objects, and environments the way others feel temperature. You walk into a house and know immediately whether it carries lightness or heaviness. You hold an object that belonged to someone and feel something about that person. You sit in a room where an argument happened hours ago and feel the residue of it in the air even though everything looks calm. This is not imagination. There is a growing body of research on how environments retain and transmit energetic information. And you have been experiencing this your entire life without a framework for it. Using this ability correctly means first, taking it seriously as real information. And second, learning to cleanse and clear the energy you absorb from spaces and environments rather than just carrying it indefinitely. We will talk more about that in the practical section. The fourth ability is perhaps the one that will surprise you most, because it is the one that gets talked about least. It is the ability to transmit healing energy through your presence alone. You have probably noticed that people calm down around you, that strangers tell you things they have never told anyone, that animals come to you, that children trust you immediately, that people in distress seem to find you without knowing why. This is not accidental. Your nervous system, because of how deeply it resonates with others, has the capacity to regulate the emotional and energetic state of people around you simply by being grounded and present. When you are centered, calm, and anchored in yourself, you become a stabilizing frequency for everyone in your environment. That is an extraordinary ability. But it only works when you are actually anchored in yourself. When you are depleted, ungrounded, and absorbing rather than transmitting, that gift reverses and you become a sponge for everyone else's dysregulation instead. This is why your own grounding is not optional. It is not self-indulgence. It is the prerequisite for every ability you carry to function as a gift rather than a burden. There is one thread that runs through all four of these abilities, and understanding it changes everything about how you approach them. Every single one of your gifts operates best when you are rooted in yourself first, not when you are extended outward, reaching toward others, trying to help or fix or absorb or understand. Rooted, present, anchored in your own body, your own energy, your own sense of self. The world has taught you to lead with extension, to reach outward first, to feel first, to give first, to absorb first. But your gifts were designed to work in the opposite direction. They were designed to flow from a center that is solid and self-aware, outward into the world with intention and discernment, not to flow inward from everyone around you with no filter and no return. That shift from passive absorption to active, grounded presence is the single most important shift you can make in how you use what you carry. So how do you actually begin making that shift? Here are 3 practices that are specific to the way you are wired, not generic wellness advice, but tools built for the particular gifts you carry. The first practice is what I call the morning inventory. And it is the foundation of everything else. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you engage with anyone, before you step into the energy of the day, take 5 minutes to sit with yourself and scan your own emotional and energetic state. Not to fix anything, not to analyze, just to know what is present in your body right now. Where is there tightness or ease? What emotions are moving through you that belong entirely to you before the day has added anything? This practice does 2 things. It establishes your baseline, which is your anchor for everything you encounter throughout the day. And it trains you to make contact with your own interior world as a daily habit, rather than only turning inward when you're in crisis. Over time, this makes the distinction between your energy and absorbed energy dramatically clearer and faster to identify. The second practice is intentional clearing, and this is specifically for the energetic sensitivity ability. At the end of each day or after any particularly intense interaction or environment, take a few minutes to deliberately release what you absorb that doesn't belong to you. This can look like a shower with the conscious intention of washing away energy that isn't yours. It can look like stepping outside and feeling your feet on the ground, breathing slowly, and mentally returning each emotion or energy you picked up to its source with compassion but without retention. It can look like sitting quietly and asking yourself, what in my body right now is mine? And what did I pick up today that belongs to someone or somewhere else? This is not mystical performance. This is energetic hygiene. The same way you wouldn't go days without washing your physical body, you cannot go days without clearing the emotional and energetic residue you accumulate simply by existing in the world as someone who feels everything. The third practice is what I call directed intuition. And it is how you begin using your intuitive reading ability with precision rather than just experiencing it as a background noise of unease. When you have an intuitive read about a person or situation, instead of immediately dismissing it or immediately acting on it, give it a container. Write it down with a date. Be as specific as you can about what you sensed and where in your body you felt it. Then observe. Give the situation time to reveal itself. And go back to what you wrote. Over weeks and months, you will build an undeniable record of your own accuracy that makes it essentially impossible to keep calling your intuition unreliable. And once you genuinely trust it, you stop second-guessing the reads that matter most, the ones that are trying to protect you, guide you, and show you the truth before the evidence catches up. You were not born too sensitive. You were born with a set of abilities that this world has very little infrastructure to support. and you found your way here anyway, still feeling, still searching, still willing to understand yourself more deeply rather than just shutting it all down. That matters. That takes a quiet kind of courage that most people will never fully see or appreciate. What you carry is not a burden waiting to be managed. It is a gift waiting to be understood. And the difference between those two things is not in the ability itself. It is in the relationship you have with it, whether you are at its mercy or whether you are its conscious, grounded, intentional steward. You are moving toward the second one. Every time you choose to understand yourself rather than apologize for yourself, every time you treat your perception as valid rather than excessive, every time you practice presence instead of absorption, you are learning to use what you were given in the way it was always meant to be used. These abilities were not given to you to exhaust you. They were given to you to serve something. You get to decide what that something is. If this video opened something in you or gave language to experiences you have been carrying alone for a long time, I would genuinely love to hear about it in the comments. Your reflection creates community here, and community is exactly what people like us need. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and stay close. There is so much more of this conversation still waiting for you.